Hello folks, welcome back. This is your old pal Hondo doing another video for you all on another real maintenance video on the old crusty venerable 202 that I found at a flea market for $2. This is a mid 70's 202 with the metal foot, and it doesn't have an anti-reverse or an anti-reverse switch like an old 404. But we're gonna dig deep inside this thing, clean it, and show you how to do it. Really easy, really simple. It's like the 404. I did a video on the real. This is an older 202. Doesn't have a continuous anti-reverse. It doesn't have the switch like a 404, but it does take apart like the older 1970s 404s. It is a very simple reel. This is not like the newer 202s with the pickup pin. The first thing you want to do with this older 202, which right here you can tell it has the gold lettering and the X marked stamped on the foot. This is like mid 70s, like 76, 77, something like that, around that time zone. It's green body, green handle crank, knobs. You want to take it apart. First you want to show you the tools that you may need for this. You may need a size 10 wrench and a flathead screwdriver, and that's basically all you need for this job. Some bearing grease, some oil, and maybe some WD-40 or some kind of reel cleanser oil to break any of the cruddy clogged up grease on the gears, and maybe a toothbrush and a wire brush for the bathing process. First you want to take off the spinner head. If the spinner head's stuck and you can't jimmy it off, stick it in the freezer for a couple hours and this thing will pop right off. First thing you want to do is take off the cover to expose the spinner head. Spinner head's here. You will need a flathead screwdriver to take the spinner head off. You want to take the handle off first with using a wrench. Now this one's a little too small, so we'll use this wrench right here to loosen it up. That wrench was too big. You might have to use a smaller wrench. Then once you get it off, you can take this handle off. It should come off fairly easy, like so. It's made out of aluminum. Now that we got that done, you take the flathead screwdriver on top of this nut here. You could either use a wrench or something like that to take it off, but a flathead screwdriver will work for this, and it should come off. If it doesn't come off, you could spray it with WD-40 and come right off. Put the screw somewhere else and take off the spinner cone. It's got some old line in it. You can take that off later on. But right here is a retaining pin. Right here, you have to put the screwdriver in it and pull it off. Just be careful, don't. And it comes right off like so. And you can just try to get it out of there if you can. Put it somewhere with the rest of the tools, the rest of the parts. Now you can just pull this off. This has to go back inside of it with the grooved in, like the little grooved in right here has to go back on top to put this spool back in. Spool comes right off. It's really dirty on the inside. Now that's out of the way. Once you pull the handle off, that means you can pull the frame of the reel out in its entirety. And you just clean the cover, the base plate, the cover, and the spool, and this right here. Sometimes this has not been lubed right. This little mechanism doesn't get lubed right. You have to clean it and then re-lube it with some Vaseline. Now we got the reel apart. Now we got the reel almost apart. Now the thing you want to do now is to push this little anti-reverse switch out of the way. It's right there. Pinion gear and wheel gear. The pinion gear comes out first. There's a little slot right there, like a little hole that this goes back into. Right here, you have to put this back into the hole so it works right, and then push this little sleeve over top of it for this to work again. So you just move that little sleeve out of the way and you pull the pinion gear straight out. Sometimes You have to just like jimmy it out. It's really clogged up with grease. It's not too bad, but it needs to be a service anyways. And then you can just pull this little wheel gear out. Sometimes they get stuck, so don't worry about it. You can take a hole punch and a hammer and knock it out if you have to. This comes out second. You can't take these other parts off. Right here is the drag knob right here. Sometimes these get really tight and they don't want to, like this one's really tight. You have to oil that eventually. And sometimes they're broke. This one here may be broke, but we'll stick a little bit of oil on it and try to get it to work. Okay, now we got all the parts in this little bathtub that I use to clean my parts. You could use a bowl, a butter bowl, whatever you want. This is just something I use, and we're going to spray all these parts down with WD-40 to unseize them and make it easier to clean with a toothbrush and a metal wire brush if we need to. Spray everything out. Flip everything over, spray it out. This right here has to be cleaned. Spray it out on the inside and the outside as well. On the inside of the spinner cone. On the outside of the spinner cone. Spray the gears down for sure. Okay, that's enough WD-40, and maybe spray down the other side of this reel here. I didn't forget about that. And in the inside here, which we'll use a Q-tip to clean that out. Now you need a toothbrush and a wire brush. Wire brush for the gears, toothbrush for the finer parts like the plastic. Just start working that toothbrush over all these parts here. Okay, all the parts are clean now. Basically what we're going to do next is to take all the old dirt and grind and grease that you use to clean the reel from the WD-40 and just take a cloth or a paper towel and just clean all the old dirt and grind out of everything. This will help clean the reel as well, and to get the dirt, excess dirt and old grease out of it. You may need a few of these to do this process. Clean out the spinner head really well. Make sure you get all the dirt out of it. If your rag starts to get dirty, get a new one, because a dirty rag will just keep getting dirt inside this reel. And we'll get a new one. That one there is dirty. Grab a new one. Clean the outside of the spinner head with the new rag. And that spinner cone is like brand new. After you do that, cleans all the dirt and everything out of it. As you can see, it's really, really clean. It's like a brand new reel. We'll take the spool now and just clean it off as well. After we cleaned it with the toothbrush, and just work our finger in the hole to get any excess grease off of the top here as well. And it's like a brand new spinner spool here. There you go. Clean that off. And the body, we're going to use a small Q-tip to get inside the hole here to clean out the old grease out of the hole, which is clogged up, and the hole down through the base of the reel where the pinion gear goes, and just, clean it up really nice, get all the old black grease out of it. You may want 2 Q-tips to do this job. Use one side of the other Q-tip. This helps clean that hole out, so when you re-grease it, it has a nice, clean, smooth surface to go through when you re-grease the pinion gear. And just make sure you go through the the wheel gear hole as well. Really good. After that, get in here with it and pull all that old gunk out of the center right here of the reel. And if you got any more crud in there, you can get out with this Q-tip, then do it. You know, just eyeball it and use it to clean all the crud off of the reel. Now take the rag and just wipe the excess grease and grind out of the top of the spool here, where the spool goes, and clean around the body of the reel. With the paper towel, just get in. There's like little grooves here around this part right here. You just dig it in there with your thumbnail and just, you know, pull all that crud out if you can. But it ain't gotta be perfect. It's just gotta get all that old crud out of there. On the bottom side of the reel as well, you just take your rag and wipe all the excess dirt or grease that you didn't get with the toothbrush around the body. See if that drag knob will move. And I don't know if it's stuck. This may be broken, so you know it may be seized on there. Okay, here we go. We're getting it moving now. All right. Now a little oil on this little drag knob will do. So be careful. These older reels, they have a tendency, those drag knobs are breaking off. So this is where the oil comes in handy. You want to give that little drag knob a generous dose of oil on the drag knob itself. And on the little drag bar itself as well. Give that a nice coat of oil. Put some oil right here on that as well. Coat that with oil. And just, if you got any excess, just wipe it up with the rag. Doesn't really matter. And just wipe all the excess up. You know, you don't really need a lot of oil for this job. And just, you know, work that mechanisms back in there. You know, work it in there. Try to get it straight. You know, we got some oil on that drag knob now. We're just going to work that drag knob until all the dirt, or if anything's grind in there, to work its way out with the oil. Oil will keep it from getting seized up in there. That way you oil this little drag knob. See, in the newer, the 90's models of 202s, these little drag knobs can be popped out and replaced with another one. So just keep working that drag knob until it loosens up, and it's loose enough, so that's good. And I think we got it cleaned enough here. And I think we are going to wipe out this body cover as well. Use maybe this right here to get into that, you know, into the trigger as well. To get all the dirt out of the trigger. Sometimes them triggers get clogged with dirt. And that's good enough. And we'll just take the rag and just wipe out the excess in here. Wipe around the threads as well. The threads can catch a lot of dirt. You know, wipe all the excess oil off of this thing. It doesn't need to have that much oil on it. You just use it to coat the reel to keep it from being corroded. And clean all the excess dirt off of it if it has any as well. I think that's good enough. And hey, now we're ready to reassemble the reel. You'll need some Vaseline, bearing grease, and oil for this process. You need a flathead screwdriver to open up the bearing grease hole. Okay, and we're opening that up. And first thing we want to do when you put this reel back together is the same way you pulled it apart. We're going to dump this into the grease, just the tip of it. You don't really need much grease, just a little bit will do. On the tip right here, you just want to mush it all in there with your fingers. Really, that's about as much grease as you need for this little wheel. And you can coat the back end of it with some grease, just a little bit. You don't need much. The back of this little handle, where the handle crank goes. Just put a little bit of grease on it. Not much, just a little bit. That'll do. And the pinion gear, what you want to coat is the bottom part, the flat part, with grease. The little spring, you don't have to coat it. Just take your finger, get a little bit of grease, work the grease into that gear mechanism, move the little anti-reverse switch out of the way, and basically that's all the grease you need right there. And now you get the body of the reel. Now we've done everything else. Grease the gear down, and we're going to put the gear wheel back in first through this little hole right here on the frame of the reel. It should go in really easy and nice. You have to move the anti-reverse switch out of the way to get that back in. Move it back in as far as it'll go. And, well, hang on. Okay, you move that little switch out of the way. That is out of the way right now. We put the gear back in. And now we're going to put the pinion gear back into place. Now remember, the pinion gear, there's a little hole right here on the anti-reverse sleeve that you have to drop that right on top of the hole. You'll see a hole right here that it drops into. You just push it down in there until it gets in there. And basically, once it gets in there, you put this little sleeve over the top of it like so. And to check to see if it's working, you grab the handle and you put the handle on it like so to see if it stops and goes. If it stops and goes, you have that right. It's correct. It means you're ready to put the body back on the reel. It means you're ready to put the front of the reel back on. Now we got this out of the way. This is one part of what we had to do. Okay, now we're going to do the spinner head. We're going to put a little bit of grease on the little mechanism that's, you know, put a little bit on there. You don't really want much. You know, just want a little bit of grease underneath the spot right there. That's basically a little bit too much, but it's plenty right there on that little mechanism. Just put a little bit of grease underneath it, and that will help that little mechanism work for you. Now the Vaseline comes into play. We'll pull out the Vaseline here, and you will need now you want to clean that handle a little bit with a wire brush to get in there and, you know, work some of that old grease out of that spot there. And that's about good right there. I'm going to wipe all the excess off of the handle as well. Forgot to clean the handle. And with this little handle, right here, these two little holes, you want to put a little bit of grease in there, oil in there. A drop will do. It helps if it's been sitting for a long time to, you know, when you crank it, it will crank really well. It won't squeak. Okay, now we're going to coat the spool with some Vaseline on the bottom. Just the bottom where you put it into the frame of the reel. Just put a little bit of Vaseline on there. You don't need much. Just the bottom, and then the center of the hole here, around top of there, and then go to the top of the reel and put a little bit of Vaseline on top of the reel as well. Keep it from rusting on the spool. And on the body of the reel, you're going to have to hold the pinion gear into place to keep it from falling out while you're reassembling the body. You might want to grab a little bit of Vaseline and go around the inside of the reel here on the inside and just rub it all over with Vaseline, so the drag and everything will have a free rein to pull without no friction. Just put a little bit in there, it will do. And we're going to reassemble the spool now. The spool goes in with the jagged end first, like so. And if the drag's working right, you'll hear it clicking. And once you get that on there, you can take the retaining pin and push it back into place. This is one of the trickiest parts to doing this. This holds the spool in place. You want to grab a small flathead screwdriver or something while holding the bottom gears into place. Try to pop it back into place got the retaining pin back into place, which holds the spool, but you still got to hold the bottom of the reel until you screw the spinner back in. You put the spinner back on top of the reel, like so, and it goes in like that. You take your little nut with the flathead screwdriver end in there, tighten it up by hand first until it's tight. Take your flathead screwdriver and then screw it in. Hold the spinner cone in place and then screw it in as tight as it'll go. You don't want to screw it in too tight, which at that point you can let go of the gears on the bottom. That means it's going to stay in place when you're using it. The drag should work, and I think everything is together properly. You know, this little pop into place like that, and you turn the handle. It closes the spinner down. Now, once we got that done, we're going to put this back into the body of the reel. The way you do it is you put the handle in first, then turn it around and make sure you're guiding the drag knob back through correctly, and it should go into place. At this point, you stick the handle back onto the reel and put the nut back onto the reel like so. You put it on until you get it hand tight, and then you use a pair of pliers or a wrench the size of this nut to tighten it back up. It's on hand tight now. And take a pair of pliers and tighten it up, and that's good enough right there. There you go. That's great right there. Fine now, see? That's really smooth compared to what it was before. That's like a brand new reel right there. Put the cover back on. At this point, you can check the drag. You pull the line out of there and you pull on the line to see if the drag's working properly, but I think the drag is working properly now since I cleaned it and oiled the knob down. I think this will work fine. You know, everything's working right. The spinner cone's working correctly. Just make sure it's working correctly. You didn't tighten up that nut. This spinner cone will be loose. Okay, folks, that's how you service or clean a older 202 reel. Folks, that has been the video on servicing and cleaning the old mid-70s ZEBCO 202. If you like this video on servicing this reel, if you got one that your granddaddy had laying around for 40 years and you want to learn how to clean it, this video helped you out, please hit the like, share, and subscribe, and leave me a comment and tell me if the video helped you out. If it did, go ahead and leave me a comment. Well, folks, this has been your old pal Hondo on another reel cleaning video. If you like this video, please tell me your thoughts. And this has been your old pal Hondo from Hillbilly Tactical. Andrew Hondo. Y'all put God first. He puts you first every time. And you know what else you do? God loves you. So does Hondo. Peace.
Tell me pretty lies. Look me in the face. Tell me that you love me, even if it's fake.